Welcome back. Today we are talking to Lucas and Aisha. They are cyclists and they cycle to farms. They have just cycled all the way from Netherlands to Kenya from the past 8 months. Can you imagine that? And we are continuing to just speak to them and learning about the different forms of farming that they've come to learn. Climate change right now is one of the big topics. When you go to any discussion that deals with agriculture, you can't just skip without mentioning climate change. And in the countries that you've visited, what are the impacts of climate change on farming that you've come across?
Yeah, like Lucas already mentioned, right? We already in Europe we saw some dried out rivers, and there were like some of the rivers. It used to be a river, and now there are cars all of a sudden. It's like a parking lot all of a sudden. So we saw a lot of interesting things happening, and of course these things, not having enough water and drought, is going to impact farming activities, right? So I think more and more farmers are aware of this, and that they have to focus on water management. Even if there is abundance of water, you have to now start thinking, okay, I can be next year, right? What do? I have to be smart. I cannot just let rainwater run off. I have to capture it. I have to use the soil. Soil is actually the most important water reserve, right? It's like a sponge. So if your soil is healthy, it can retain more water, and then you can keep it and store it for when it's becoming more dry. So we learn a lot throughout. The cycling is a great way to do so, because you actually feel the drought on your skin, right? Your skin is cracking, you feel the moisture level is dropping, you see actually tree graveyards sometimes. It's really, really saddening, but it really helps us to understand in which setting these farms are and in which context they are farming, and then to see that they're still very successful, like in Greece, in Jordan, in Egypt. Here in Kenya, we see a lot of hardship when it comes to climate change, effects of climate change on these farms. But these farmers are thriving. They have lush green fields, and it's so shocking. As soon as you enter these fields, you know, your body is like so happy, because we have been cycling through all the heat, and then once you're at the farm, you just feel relaxed, you know? You just feel like, oh, this is the environment that we have to create, because we will all be next, right? So, yeah.
That's true. And Lucas, throughout the countries, Jordan, you've come to Kenya now. When you look at Kenya, and what can we borrow from the other areas, and what can those areas also borrow from our side? Because as we were speaking earlier, you said there are things that we can learn from each other in farming.
Yeah, very good question. And so first of all, the first thoughts that come into my mind is, you know, when I think about the Kenya and the food forests, agroforestry systems, and the, you know, the biodiversity that you have here, I think that's, you know, maybe it might seem to be relatively clear for some of the farmers here, but you know, it's very far dream for farmers in Middle East or in Europe. So I think these kind of farming systems, you know, where you have corn and the pea growing around and maybe some pumpkins around, you know, this is a lot, you know, for you it seems like a regular practice. It seems to be here, you know, up there it's a very kind of modern
New
thinking
practice.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can add up to that, it's good that you mentioned this, because indeed what we see here is that a lot of farmers are diversifying by default, because diversifying means diversifying your income, right? If you have different crops, you have income all year round. So you have to be very smart, and people do that always here. It feels like every farm we go to, even if they're conventional, they still have their little garden where they do several crops. So that's something we can learn, I think, because in Europe it's really focused on conventional, just a few crops, 1, 2, 3 maybe. And then just huge fields. We think in scale, right? We don't think in how the scale of diversity. So
true. Maybe that should be the main learning from Europe to here. You know, I think don't learn those mistakes that we did there with industrialization too much, right? That's that's one of the ideas, and maybe keep that small farm in your neighborhood. It's not such a bad thing.
Yeah.
Of course, it's easy to talk, when you need to farm and feed your family and sell all those things,
Yes.
when we saw a farmer that he has to sell his one avocado for 1 or 3 shillings, and then, it's being sold in Europe for hundreds of shillings, then it's a bit heartbreaking, right? So clearly a lot of things needs to be solved.
All right, and now let's move on also to another interesting thing. So as you were coming from Netherlands, I believe the friends that you spoke to or the family that you spoke to, maybe some of them would say, why would you want to do this? What is this interesting thing about farming that you've come to learn as you have just crossed through up to now?
Yeah.
Because you told me about the taste of the food is different. Even the way the climate is sort of different. So what is the one thing that you've just seen that is really that you couldn't have imagined when you were starting this?
I think one of the most important things that I learned is that, for me, food was very general, like you just eat, right? You go to the supermarket, you buy your food, you don't even think about it, you eat healthy, you think you're eating healthy, right? You actually don't know where this food is coming from and what they have sprayed on it and how it's grown. I had no clue. And for a long time I didn't have that clue. I think it just started with, studying about food systems and the challenges about it and becoming very negative about the food system and thinking, I don't know what's gonna save our planet anymore. So it came out of frustration, I think. And then from frustration, I started thinking, there must be solutions out there, and why are we not talking to the ones that are actually the stewards of our land, right? The ones that are actually working hard for us to eat every day. So that's something I learned, and I think I shared it with my friends. Indeed, some of my friends were a bit more skeptical, but and family as well. But
Yes.
I think more and more they are aware of what we are doing as we are sharing. We are sharing. That's why we find it important to share these stories with a broader audience. We are now working on a documentary showing the cycling part. Of course, that's interesting, but also the more important message of what are these farmers doing and what kind of world are they building for us, right? So putting them central, I think that's something that we are doing, and more people are texting us, messaging us, saying, hey, what you guys are doing is so cool. I want to do the same in Latin America. I want to do the same now. There's another couple who is cycling towards Nepal, I think, at the moment. So, and they're visiting farmers as well and learning and documenting. And that's kind of the movement that we want to create. We want more young people into agriculture. So making it more exciting is important, and they have to see it with their own eyes. Yeah.
Right, Lucas, what is the one thing? For her, it's the food and and what she has really talked about. So, what is the one thing that you didn't expect that that has just changed in you?
Ooh, that's a strong, self-reflective question. And I grew up in this very much conventional farming background. So all my family is in this conventional agribusiness, right? And fertilizers and pesticides, and I'm kind of the green sheep, I would say. I figured out that there are things that could be done in a very different way. And I think when I remember back my grandmother's little garden that used to be in her garden, it's kind of, I kind of have a little bit of nostalgia about that garden, because I think I learned most of agriculture right there, not in the agriculture education system, which is weird. Sometimes we have these arguments with Aisha when we spend quite some time together while cycling, and she was like, one time angry, and she was like, you studied agriculture, but you have no understanding of, certain plants, right? True, that's very true, and I think that's what I'm learning, that a lot of fundamentals are missing, but there are many solutions that we can learn from, and yeah, that would be my takeaway.
All right. And now, thank you for that. Now, let's move on. In the 5 kilometers that you've covered, now you're saying you want to go to Uganda, Rwanda, and then probably maybe to the next place. So have you included any farmers in your, do you even have like a sort of a group that you keep tabs with the farmers that you've visited so far?
Absolutely. So we have indeed a map on our website where we point out the farmers that we visited so that other people that are interested to visit those farms can reach out. Obviously, we write articles about these farms, so a lot of interest comes from there as well. And we also, when we are interacting with these farmers, we talk about, oh, we have seen this in that farm, maybe it's interesting for you to apply the same because you're struggling. So it's really interesting to connect these farmers. So it's more and more we are connecting and matching different farmers with each other that have similar problems or challenges.
All right, and Lucas, also adding on to that, how do you get to reach to farmers on ground? Because I believe it's a new country, you don't know anyone there, but you get to go and visit a farm. So how is it that you get to visit? Do you contact them, or are they the ones who usually contact you?
I think it goes, all sorts of ways. We would say it's a snowballing effect. You start with some sort of, somebody suggested that person, then somebody, gives a whole list of farms to visit. Somebody is working with those farms. So it's all about talking with a lot of different type of people, from researchers, from the people in the field, to the farmers in the Facebook groups, so all sorts of ways of possibility. Sometimes it just happens on the ground. Once you are at the farm, oh, you should visit my neighbor's farm, he's doing, great things. Or, so it goes word of mouth. And I think in Uganda, we have a few farms now, and we are more than keen to visit more. Yeah. So I think, so we always send a message before, we explain what we are doing, we say when we will come. Usually we come a bit later than that because cycling takes, time and it's hard to predict. But but we are more than open for things that they come to us as well. That helps.
All right. So most of the time, people come to the website, right, and see what you're doing. Because I believe when you go to a new place, you wouldn't know if you are being taken to a farm or maybe a trap, So I believe, is it in the website that people usually come? Or how is it? Because now, as you say you're going to Uganda, did you have people on the ground there that you were speaking to lead you?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
So actually, for example, during COP, we met quite some people. So we reach out to them, right? And then usually we are the ones reaching out, saying, hey, this is interesting. Can you help us out? And then they're like, yeah, we know this person, we know that person. So it's usually us contacting people on the ground. Yeah.
All right. All right. And I believe you also have an Instagram page that is called Cycle?
Cycle to Farms.
Cycle to Farms, and also a website. So you can just reach out, even if you're watching right now, just go to Cycle to Farms on Instagram and also on the website, on Google, and then you'll find them there, and then you'll get them come to your farm before they leave Kenya. All right, now let's move on, and also now look at this. And as you travel, there are challenges. What are some of the challenges that you've been able to come, that you've faced since you started 8 months ago?
Yeah. I think there are so many challenges, but people usually think that it's physical challenges. You have to be very fit. You don't have food to eat, or it's very hard to climb up the mountain. True, it's difficult sometimes. You have to push. Sometimes you have a flat tire. But I think these challenges are they don't take that much pace in our head, you know. It happens, you move on. I think the hardest part is actually when you go to the farm, you establish a good connection. You learn about each other, about the farm, the people who are there, and you know, you know, it's also usually a nice place to be, right? There's a lot of great nutritious food, and at some point we have to leave, and I think that's the hardest part, you know, to leave.
To leave.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
leave the farms.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And now, also, still on that, as you travel among the challenges, do you usually go through the borders, or you just find your way into a new country? How does it happen?
Yeah, usually through the borders. I mean, like where the cars are, we come with our bikes, and sometimes they look at us very weirdly, like, oh, okay, people by bike. But yeah, usually it's went quite easily, I have to say. Obviously, you have to, in Jordan, Egypt, we had to get a visa before, so a few days before you go to a police station to get your visa. But so far, so good. Yeah.
All right.
I think we are, you know, we look funny, you know, people on a bicycle with the heavy bags on the side, you know, we have this yellow vest, you know.
We don't really look
we
like
don't
a threat, I think.
Yeah, you know, we are not gonna, you know, run away with, you know, with something, you know, we are quite heavy. So
Yeah,
we have our tent, our kitchen, you know, so we are like a snail. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, usually the police interactions are very positive because they're just wondering what are they doing, these people.
True,
And you
in-
have
in
the
Kenya.
documentations and everything.
Yes,
Okay.
we have everything. Yeah.
All right. Let's move on also. And now, looking at farming in the coming months, in the coming years, what are we looking at in terms of growth, in terms of, are we still going to be using the conventional types of farming? Let us start with you. Just going forward, from what you've seen so far, and in the coming months, what are we looking at?
Well, obviously, I hope that we are looking into a future where regenerative agriculture is the standards. That's obviously something I hope and wish for, because I only see win-win-win. I don't see anything negative about this way of farming. Whereas with conventional agriculture, we see a lot of negative things, and everyone sees it, right? Even the conventional farmers themselves. I mean, the past years, the price of pesticides and fertilizers went up the roof. So
Yes.
I think now more and more farmers are also thinking we have to become independent, right? Can we farm without inputs? Yes, you can. So seeing that and getting the inspiration from farmers who are not putting any inputs into their farm is a way forward. And why wouldn't they, right? You save money actually that way, and you're also contributing to a healthier food system. So I only see positive things, but we have to push this story forward and show and demonstrate that it is possible also in large scale, and that we can feed people with regenerative agriculture.
Lucas, your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, there's this common belief that you cannot feed the planet with organic or regenerative practices. Right? I think there is a flaw in that thinking, and however, when you look, you know, conventional farming takes most of the area right now, and it's not going to change very quickly.
That's
you know,
true.
now the GMOs are coming in.
Yes.
You know, all different kind of technologies are taking that place. So it's not an easy battle. You know,
No,
but I think
But we are ready.
True. But all we need to do the right thing. And,
Yeah.
All right. And now, you are young people, and young people just setting these steps forward and saying, okay, we want to do this. What would you like to tell a young person out there who's looking at you and wondering, okay, so should I also do such a thing? Or what can they learn from looking at you and doing this?
That's a very good question. I think it's very important that young people are, you know, daring. It's hard, you know, to make this choice of we're going to cycle, visit farms all over the world. I don't really have a lot of money, but I'm just gonna do it. It's scary, but at the same time, if you really believe in something, whether it's what we are doing or whatever you are passionate about, I think you can do it. And it's our future, right? It's our future and the future generations' future that we are fighting for. So we cannot wait. There is no time to wait. We have to do it now, and we have to be the first ones. And if it's not possible, you fall and you stand up again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a big deal. From making mistakes, you learn a lot. So. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I think just ask yourself one question, what would you do if you would know that you will die in 2 years? It's a radical question, but it gives a deadline, a little bit a short timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So then you really deeply think, do I really want to stay in that miserable job that I don't like anybody and, I'm doing the repetitive task, or I can actually try to do something a bit more that I would always wanted, and maybe, to spark that change, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think you don't have to cycle across the whole universe, back to the moon and back, no need. But, it's all about to do something courageous, maybe to, start to write that book, maybe make that animation that you wanted, maybe share that story that you were not very, you were ashamed of. So I think it's all about those small, tiny, courageous moves, to go just beyond yourself. Mm-hmm. That's the place to be.
All right, and now we cannot finish without me asking you this. As you started, now in the coming 1 year or 2 years, are we seeing you continuing with this journey of just cycling to farms?
Well, I think this is one of the questions we are also asking ourselves. We dedicated 1 year, but I think it might take a little bit longer for us.
Yeah.
If once we will see that we have reached what we were looking for, maybe we will continue our journey in different ways. We are not sure which kind of ways it's going to be, but it's definitely going to be related in agriculture and finding, because we learned a lot from the farmers. And our mission, at least for this lifetime, is to help them out as much as we can.
Mm-hmm. Aisha?
Yeah,
Your
no,
thoughts?
like Lucas said, I completely agree. This topic is very dear to our hearts, so I don't see myself, diverting from it. Maybe the cycling will end, but at the same time, I can see myself cycling for a couple of more years, because this is the way we really connect with people. We put ourselves in a very vulnerable position, so people also feel free to connect with us. We see a lot of landscape changes. It's only positive, right? Economically, it's eco-friendly, it's economically viable. So I don't see anything going like that could hold us back. But obviously, I think the mission is regenerative agriculture. So I see myself supporting this and making impact in this sector.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, and also, now you're still in Kenya. Do you plan on visiting any other farms before you move to Uganda? And for how long are you in Kenya?
Yeah, so now actually our bikes are in Homa Bay. So from Homa Bay we will continue cycling to Busia and then towards Uganda.
Okay.
So hopefully we will find some farms in between, regenerative farms, that will
Those
be
sides,
amazing.
There are a lot of farms, so you
Yes,
don't
yeah,
miss.
yeah,
We don't
yeah.
go to Uganda without
Absolutely.
just passing through.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, and are you yourself farmers, Lucas, at home?
Well, as I said, I saw my grandma always in the field. The family is in agribusiness, so that's why I was always craving, to do something with my hands. So.
And for me, I come from a different background. No one is farming, but my heart lays in farming, and I can see myself definitely having a little plot of land where I can grow some vegetables for my own consumption. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now we've come to the end. Your parting shot and his parting shot. To just tell people about what you need to encourage farmers in Kenya to embrace and what they need to do that you've maybe learned from the other side that you'd want farmers here to just learn?
Okay. I think it's important that what we have seen so far is that all the regenerative farmers that we saw are very solution oriented. So there is a problem, they solve it with the knowledge that they have, right, on the field. By observing, by seeing, okay, in this context, what works, right? What works there doesn't always work here, but having a clear understanding of the context that you are working in and paying a lot of attention into designing your field, that's something that we have learned, and I think in Kenya can be done more, because the design takes a lot of time. So it's not an easy thing, right? It's not like, okay, I'm gonna grow this carrot here and then it will flourish. No, you have to think, okay, where am I gonna put my agroforestry? Where am I gonna put my swale so that the water is carried in the right spaces? What is the highest point of the field so that you work with gravity a bit? Where do I place which crop so that it can become a support species for another crop? So there goes a lot of thinking, a lot of science behind. But obviously you don't have to do that alone. You can look around. We have seen a lot of regenerative farms around that are also teaching about this, right? The Lake Pia Permaculture Center, for example. They are doing great. They're giving workshops about this. So learning from those farms is very important, and then applying it to your own field, which is different, obviously, but that's something I would tell the farmers to do.
All right, thank you so much, Aisha and Lucas.
Yeah, it's hard to give advice when you know that there is a lot of hard work in you know, to implement that. But perhaps the only advice would be, you know, don't rely only on tea or coffee in your fields. Diversify as much as you can.
All right, thank you so much, Aisha and Lucas, for joining us today on Agri Talk. There you have it, diversify. That is what Lucas is talking about, and Aisha is telling us we need to make sure that at least we do what we can as farmers to just make sure that our soil is even rich to enable us to just make this farming successful in Kenya. That's it from myself and Aisha and Lucas. They have cycled all the way from Netherlands to this place, just cycling to go and visit farms and trying to just learn what farmers are doing in different regions. And they'll be going to Uganda, and then from Uganda they'll be moving to Rwanda, and then the journey will continue. Right, my name is Kelvin Nyakundi. I hope you've learned something today, and you can also try. You can try from cycling from Kenya, even just to the next country, which is maybe Uganda or Tanzania. Just learn something small about what farmers are doing in that side that is different from what we are doing, and so that you can be able to learn and also pass this knowledge to other people. All right, there you have it. We've come to the end of Agri Talk today. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. Have a wonderful time.